We've got Jonathan from the It's Complicated channel here. We're out here in Las Vegas, Nevada, just kind of doing an open conversation about the red pill, the manosphere, feminism, men's rights, and everything else, right?
Big weekend, F1.
Yeah, it's F1 racing right now, so it's super crowded. I mean, you see this, it's insane. You barely park, and I'm staying at the hotel.
Yeah, it's raining right now too, so.
Yeah, but I'm glad to have him out here. He was just on, well, it was a few months ago. He was on Pearl's podcast, Pearly Things.
You know, how did you find the red pill?
Women would say that they want a nice guy, but then they continually go for these bad boys.
Yeah, so that was like kind of the first time I really had a chance to sit down and just give my thoughts and everything. And so I could kind of like, you know, appear on camera and give my actual like opinions, because a lot of people don't really know where I'm coming from. They just kind of see everything through what I present with my interviews, so.
Right, your street interviews.
Why do you think like this is almost like a hub for PUAs? There's so many PUAs who come here, and what is it about Las Vegas as opposed to like other cities like Miami or, you know what I mean, that speak to you, I guess?
A lot of pickup artists come to Vegas because it's very target rich. I mean, it's not hard to find a lot of great looking women in Vegas. Not only that, but you know the saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So a lot of women who come out here are looking to meet somebody. And there's something about Vegas that when people come here, especially the women, they get like hypnotized by the lights, the casino floor, all the mental stimulation.
Right. It's kind of funny because there's all these wedding chapels in Vegas, and everyone's like, you're not going to meet your wife here, so it's just kind of ironic.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I wouldn't advise meeting your wife here because it's like the equivalent of meeting your wife in a club.
Right.
Whenever I hear somebody message me and they say, hey, Em, my girl's going to Vegas this weekend with her girlfriends, do you think that's okay? I'm like, no, absolutely not. She's got to go. I mean, the fact she's even asking you, it's done. We're going to walk to a more quieter area and start jumping into this because we've got a lot to talk about. We just continuing our conversation because, like I said, you were on Pearl.
Yes.
Pretty recently, and you guys had a lot of discussion about the red pill and the manosphere and men's rights. So yeah, let's just dive into that.
Sure.
So you said that the red pill, like you felt like a lot of guys are just like selling programs, and you know, because we're really trying to get to the fix of this. Like, how do we fix the dating market? I guess
solutions. I mean, obviously, you know, we're told that the red pill is a praxeology that doesn't give prescriptions. And I kind of have a problem with that because I think that the community that's built around the red pill absolutely does give prescriptions. So, I mean, obviously we want to acknowledge the reality of the situation we're in, but, you know, then it's like, okay, if we're going to give solutions, then we have to give prescriptions. So, you know, where do we go from here?
Okay, so you're saying like the red pill like gives prescriptions as opposed to?
Well, I think that I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about this, but you said that, you know, there's a difference between the red pill, you know, as just kind of recognizing the reality versus, you know, what red pill influencers are doing, right? So you said there's a separation between there. But I don't know, I mean, there's all these different creators and voices in the space, and I don't think that we're all on the same page, and I would like to see more debate between MRAs, men's rights activists, and MGTOW, and red pill, and right now it's just always the same. It's always the same panel shows of, you know, the red pillars versus the feminists. And I'm saying, okay, well, if we're going to talk about solutions, different people have different ideas for solutions. So why are we not debating those solutions? And I guess you kind of you see a little bit of that here and there, I guess you could say. But I would just make the argument that I think that, you know, all of these influencers, most of these influencers, the problem I have with them is I think that they're blaming feminism, and I think feminism isn't the only problem. I think that's only a symptom of a much larger problem called gynocentrism.
Sure.
And I think that they just say gynocentrism is just the way it is, and we have to adapt to that. And that's why I believe that the red pill now is nothing more than just gynocentric cope. And I would like to see more people challenge and attack gynocentrism, but a lot of people feel like, oh, that will never change, and I don't believe that that's the case. I think that can change, and we must change it because it's unsustainable.
What would be some examples of gynocentric cope?
Well, I think that, you know, in the shortest terms, I think that most of their prescriptions is move or improve. Either self-improve, which I would consider overpaying because, our society's come to assess the average man as unacceptable and he has to change and improve. And the other cope would be passport bros, move to another country. And I don't think that a women's advocacy group would tell women to just leave the country. What women's advocacy has told women is, come together, form a political group, and change the laws. And that's what you've seen feminism do. And I think that I would like to see more political action from the men's community, because I think that we're not going to negotiate our way out of this. I think we're going to have to either legislate our way out of this, or it's going to, I think it's really going to have to start with the culture, because I think that
for sure.
The culture right now is blaming it's blaming masculinity, when I think that it's not masculinity that's the problem, it's hypergamy that's the problem.
Right.
And I think that if you look at our history and the way things used to be, there used to be checks on hypergamy. It used to be at fault divorce, and before that it was the dowry system. So when you had arranged marriages, women were required to have skin in the game. They couldn't just you couldn't have a peasant woman marrying a king and totally just choose the highest status guy like they're currently doing. So I just did an episode about this. All the things that I talk about in these interviews, all these things that I talk about, I try to have a dedicated episode on my channel that kind of explore these different ideas. And I just did an episode called Male Hypergamy, which is, I would argue that men can also be hypergamous. Just like women wanting the bigger, better deal, I would say that's the equivalent of men wanting the younger, hotter chick, or maybe even multiple women. But the problem is that the family court system only punishes one gender for pursuing their hypergamy. And it used to punish women for pursuing their hypergamy when we had at-fault divorce and we had dowries. So women, like I said, could not just be as hypergamous as they want with no consequences.
Okay, but when it comes to a dowry, that's something that's definitely not something that we practice in the U.S., right? That would be more like India, Asia, where they have arranged marriages.
Well, let me correct that. A lot of people believe that dowry is this foreign concept, when if you actually look at the history, the dowry was like the backbone of Christian marriage for thousands of years.
Okay, up until when? When did it stop being mainstream?
Well, shout out to a channel called This Is Shah. He basically is like...
Hey, Shah, he follows me.
Shout out to Shah.
What's up, Shah?
He is an expert. He probably knows more about the dowry than any of us.
Yeah.
So, he'd be the one to ask these questions too.
Yeah. And I need to have a conversation with him about this and just go in more in depth, because I know he covers the dowry a lot, right?
Yes.
And that's, again, as somebody who was born and raised in, in the United States, it's like a foreign concept, at least these days, but maybe it wasn't back in the day, but it's just a foreign concept. And just before we go any further, so you guys don't have to Google this, what is a dowry? It's basically where, correct me if I'm wrong, if the woman's family, the bride's family, contributes a set amount of money to...
It specifically refers to money or property brought by a bride to her husband on their marriage. So basically, that is a payment from, like I said, the bride's family to the groom. Now, in reverse, there's something called bride price or bride wealth, which is basically when the groom is paying for the bride. So basically, it could go either way, basically depending on what your culture allows. But if you look in history, some of the most masculine men, like King Henry VIII and Julius Caesar, took dowries. And so, the narrative that we're being told right now is
they
that...
did? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't recognize this.
But they already had money, right? They already had
yes,
wealth.
Correct. But a lot of people during that time would get married because they would try to expand their empire. So I forget exactly, but I know that if you were going to be a king and you married a queen, some of these women brought some serious cash to that relationship. They brought the entire GDP of England. I forget which queen this was. Or some women actually brought trade routes with them. Now, obviously, dowry was practiced among all different classes, all the way down to, the peasant level, nobles, things like that, kings.
And obviously, the benefit of dowry is to make sure the woman has a stake in the marriage, right? Where she can't just bounce on you.
Skin in the game, yeah.
Yeah, she has skin in the game.
And similar, when you look at fault divorce, women, could not just say, oh, I'm not happy, I deserve better, and all of a sudden just bounce out of a marriage and take half like they currently can. So back when we had consequences, women used to be held accountable, and now you have all these red pillers saying, well, we live in a deregulated sexual marketplace, and so men have to just navigate that system. And I'm saying, okay, well, why are we trying to navigate the problems instead of just fixing the problems? There used to be regulations, so why don't we just try to get those regulations put back so that we can actually have a fair and balanced sexual marketplace?
Right. But that is...
I mean, it's a reach. I mean, it's definitely a reach. Yeah.
Say hi, Giz.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I mean, I can't even see, like, how would that even work in today's environment, today's culture, like for the woman's family to put up money when she gets married? Because a lot of these women, they've had it so good for so long, it's like they don't have to do anything, right? We talked. I saw you guys talk about hoflation on Pearl's channel and all this, and yeah, obviously it's a real thing. I mean, it's actually happening. So yeah, these women, like their standards, their expectations, everything's just.
But at the same time, okay, so then we talk about hoflation, then we think about inflation, right? So one of the questions that I've asked before is I said, okay, if the price of gas suddenly shot up to $25 per gallon, would you tell consumers to become high-value consumers, or would you instead protest the system that's allowing monopolies to exploit people, at the basically exploiting people and making them pay a higher price?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but like, how would we fix that so we could have a system that's more fair in the dating market? Because you have, I mean, how did feminism get started? How did
Well, look at antitrust laws, how they break up business monopolies.
Right.
So I think that women have a monopoly over sexual access, and so they can just demand whatever they want.
Sure.
And so now basically men are kind of expected to overpay.
Yeah.
And I want some type of kind of checks and balances so that we can lower the price so that average men, because otherwise we have a society where only the top men are going to share all the women, and then the bottom 80 to 90% of men are all going to be celibate. How do you run a society like that?
Yeah.
There's no incentive for men to do anything.
Right. I mean, and that's definitely been happening as of like the last, the turn of the century with like dating apps and social media. But I mean, even going, hundreds of years back, thousands of years back, men were always kind of overpaying, right? It's just now that it's like reached epic proportions where it needs to stop, right? I mean, because back in the day, an average guy could find a decent looking wife, at least on his level, get married, have a family.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, were men overpaying when we had the dowry system? I mean, women obviously, if a woman could not afford a dowry, then marriage was just not in the cards for her. And a lot of women had to end up going to work at a convent, or they had to go to a brothel or something like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of women also had to save up money for their own dowry. They didn't just, get the money from their parents always. So, I mean, there's a lot
when
of,
is the last time we had a dowry? Like, when is the last time it was like actually
and also let me
mainstream?
clarify also, I'm not literally saying we need to bring the dowry back. Okay. All I'm saying is that, I just want men to understand that they need to, like, they shouldn't be shamed for wanting to negotiate a fair deal and be expected to just, well, you're a man, you're supposed to fall on the sword, you're a man, you're supposed to, just, how dare you ask, her to bring anything to the table? Right. Men don't care about a woman's money or what she contributes financially. Yeah. When men throughout history, there's receipts, there's evidence of men throughout history basically saying, what do you bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, you can't even ask that question without getting shamed, right? Have you asked that on your channel?
Of course,
like, women are like, what?
Yes.
What do you mean?
I am the table.
Yeah,
yeah, that's exactly what you get. Yes. So I think kind of, shout out to CGA. He's got that famous quote that says, men are in love, women are in business. Well, maybe it's time for men to also be in business. Because, I mean, that's the thing, is the fact that when we went from the dowry system to the romantic model, I mean, that's basically, if you look at the history, the evolution of going from the dowry system to now all of a sudden, my daughter's beauty is enough. She doesn't need to bring a dowry. There's articles that Shah has gone over on his channel where there was literally a transition from what's called marriages of reason to marriages of romance.
Okay.
And so the whole, I mean, I've done an episode about this called Romance is Female Worship. I'm sure you know that
right.
that romance just goes one way. I mean, women are not the romantics. Men are the romantic ones.
Oh, yeah.
Men are the ones expected to court women, put women on a pedestal, prove their love, prove their worth. All of that is just gynocentrism.
Right.
So I think that men just need to start rejecting the romantic model and just get back to okay, we should be able to not be shamed into a role and have the self-respect to negotiate a fair deal.
Yeah, but I mean, because human behavior is driven by incentive, and so like what would be a woman's incentive these days, especially because we have hoflation and these women are just, thanks to social media and dating apps, they're getting all sorts of attention all around the world. This did not used to happen before. And I always tell the story of like I had a friend of mine back in the day before the internet, this black dude, Smiley, shout out Smiley. He was a chubby chaser, so he would get like these women who are like 20 pounds overweight and 30 pounds overweight, and they were always like really good looking. They were always like, they had beautiful faces, and I didn't like fat chicks, but I was like, man, there were several of them that I was like, man, I wouldn't mind, getting together with her. However, last I talked to him, I go, hey, how's the chubby chasing going? He goes, it's dead. He goes, I can't even get that anymore. He goes, these girls are getting like dudes who look like male models on social media. He's like, it's over. He's like, I can't get the same level of girls anymore.
Yeah, and I remember like back in the day, there was like this this influencer. I think his name was David Bond. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I remember.
But
him.
He did a really interesting video that I watched where it said, why is dating easier in Thailand? And it was kind of like my introduction to like learning about passport bros.
Yeah.
And one of the best points that he made is he was saying that in Asia or other countries, your average woman has a healthy body weight. And in the West, in America, when the average woman weighs, 170 pounds, it's like, okay, well, when half the apple...
5'2", 170 pounds, so not like,
when half the apple orchard is rotten apples, according to, men, basically, it's going to take the value of average women who have a healthy body weight, and all of a sudden they're going to double, and they're all going to think that they're models now. You know what I mean?
Right.
And in other countries, just having a nice figure isn't enough. You actually have to bring more to the table. You have to work on your personality and not be so, rude and disrespectful and things like that. So
combative.
So at the end of the day, I think that it really just comes down to, supply and demand. I think that if it was skewed the other way, where if men had basically all of these options, then the burden of performance would be on women, because they would have to basically earn our love and our respect.
Yeah.
And if anything, you saw evidence of that, because back when men were the ones who controlled the money and women needed a man, women had to go to finishing school for etiquette and femininity training.
Yeah.
And now women have basically been spoiled rotten, so they're the ones who become the lazy bums, not us. And yet everyone's blaming men for being lazy bums when the burden of performance is all on us.
Yeah. It's funny. I've been like, sometimes I go down the YouTube rabbit hole of looking at a lot of these educational films from like the 1950s that were for women, like how to act like a lady, how to dress proper,
correct,
how to do your makeup, how to behave on a date, how to treat your date, and all this. And you would think, and it's so insane because these are just basic morals, right? It's just like, this is how you should be in a decent society. Yet, like when you look in the comments, like so many women in the comments are those like, oh, I'm glad oh my God, it's so oppressive, such an oppressive society. I'm like, what? There's nothing in that video that's unfair.
But is that not the reverse of what we're seeing right now?
Oh, absolutely.
Women used to always complain about being held to this delusional Barbie standard, and now basically it's the opposite. As men are being held to a delusional G.I. Joe standard. We all have to be jacked, and we all do a 6 feet tall, 6-pack abs, 6-figure income. If you're not a Chad, then you good luck. And so what's happening is I think a lot of red pillers are becoming black pilled.
Oh yeah, that's definitely happened. I've had wingmen. Literally wingmen that I winged with in LA that were really great pickup artists have gone black pill, and it's like our friendship ended because of it, because they're just, they became nihilistic, which is strange because some of these guys were really good with approaching women. So I don't understand the whole black pill thing. It's just like complete nihilism at that point where it's give up itis. You just throw in the towel.
And the other thing is, look, I'm not against the idea of self-improvement. Everyone should self-improve. That's just part of being an adult. Everyone should just work on themselves because, that's why we have a job. We want to make more money. We want to, be healthy, things like that. But at some point, it's like, how high do women's standards have to go? How much competition does it have to be before you just say this is no longer worth it? That's why so many men go MGTOW. They say the juice is no longer worth the squeeze. And even if you become a high-value man, shout out to CGA again. There's that term called high value target. How many, Tom Brady, how many Johnny Depp, how many high status, high level men have been destroyed by the legal system?
Right. Yeah. Even Tom Brady. His what was his ex-wife's name? Giselle. I talked about her a few times on this channel. Yeah. I remember at the time she was seeing the jiu-jitsu instructor, and so many women had her back, and they were like, "No, she's not. You guys are all wrong, all wrong." And then it turns out, just what was it, last year? She had the guy's baby and all this, and So.
And at the end of the day, it's like we push masculinity so hard, but how is being masculine going to help men from the family court system, or how is that going to help men who are falsely accused? I mean, at some point we have to address men's rights, because there are actual laws. I mean, look at Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is this super high status top G. And even he had to leave the country because the laws are different. And
Right.
I've even asked men on the street. I said, okay, if women were all virgins who cooked and cleaned, your ideal woman, would you still get married under the current laws?
Yeah, it's the laws that are screwed up, man. I do agree with you there. It's like that definitely has to change, or the laws. But the problem is, and it always boils back to this, we have too many simps in the world. And that's what I feel like, especially in high places, government, lawmaking, policies. So you get a lot of these, issues that we're having now, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we have
we
laws
can't change it.
like VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where that's Biden who put that law in, and Biden is a simp.
dude.
I mean,
Yeah,
it basically just comes down to, but it really comes down to, there are different types of simps, in my opinion. Okay, I think that there are men who simp just because they believe, they're like these white knights who feel like they have to, rescue women, and they have to just be these protectors. And then there are simps that I would almost see as like victims of addiction or loneliness or something like that.
Right.
I mean,
well, they would be like incels more.
well, okay. So let me ask you this: do you think the bigger goal of the manosphere is to address the divorce problem or the incel problem?
I would say both.
Would you weigh one more heavily? I mean, I would almost say more of the incel problem, because the divorce problem, you can choose to not get married, but you can't really choose to be an incel.
Right.
And one other thing I have a big problem with is everyone is trying to paint incels or lonely men as these loser basement dwellers who just sit at home and play video games all day and eat pizza and do nothing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of incels who are just average men. In fact, there's a lot of men who are married and they're in a dead bedroom, and I would classify them as incels as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just any man who's ever been rejected by a woman is temporarily an incel.
But how do you become an incel? I mean, that begs the question. And, just from my experience, like teaching pickup artistry and, taking students out on boot camp for so many years, the biggest sticking point, as we call it in the POA community, is these guys are socially awkward. They've never learned to socialize. They never learned how to interact with the opposite sex. They have social anxiety, like some like really crippling social anxiety. I've had guys like come on boot camp and like literally like shaking, and I mean it's crazy. I'm like, dude, why are you shaking? And just absolutely crippled with nervousness. And I could see okay, there's a deeper problem here. It's like you can't even make friends with dudes, much less talk to the opposite sex. So it's about it's really paralyzing to see.
I mean, I would wonder if we lived in a society where,
and some of them aren't bad looking. I have to say that some of them I'm like surprised. Like they're not bad looking. They're in decent shape. I'm like, you should have a bit more confidence. A little bit higher self-esteem.
Yeah, I think that everybody needs to develop some type of social skills. I mean, obviously, if you're going to do any type of business,
Yeah.
You have to approach people just to make sales, things like that.
Right.
So that is definitely an important part of life. But I mean, imagine the anxiety that women would feel if women were the ones expected to approach men. I mean, obviously, a lot of things women aren't capable of because they've never been expected to do those things. But I think that women would have more. I mean, a woman could go up to a man, and as long as she's attractive, I mean, she could be totally awkward, but it'll be seen as cute. For some reason, I don't know. It's like shyness is something a man cannot have, and I don't understand why. Being shy is a human quality, but it's like women have the privilege of being shy, men do not. We cannot be shy.
Oh, because we're just wired differently. So I mean, I totally get that.
Well, but that's the thing. It's like I think that having anxiety is a human quality. I mean, obviously, I think people should try to overcome that because new doors open when you're able to find, self-confidence and be able to go after what you want. But I think, I don't know, I've asked this question. I said, why is it when women being assertive, going after a career and what you want is a good quality, but not also in dating? Now, there's this narrative where it's like, okay, if a woman is assertive and she approaches and like that, then she's like this aggressive boss babe and like that. I don't necessarily think that has to be the case. I think that a woman can be capable without being a B word. You know what I mean?
Well, as far as like approaching guy?
Yeah, well, this is the other thing too. It's like a lot of dating coaches want to sculpt men into becoming the high value man that women chase.
Yeah,
so what's the problem
true.
with women approaching?
Okay, so when it comes to women approaching, and you'll know this because you live in Vegas, but I mean, personally for me, like the few times it's happened, and then I have friends who are male models, it happens to them a lot more often, especially in LA. I've like seen like women like go right for my friend who's like 6'3", and he's on the cover of magazines and like laser. That does not happen to me. Like every once in a blue moon, and she's never like anybody I'd want as a girlfriend. But it's usually in a guy, like whenever a woman approaches you for a guy, it's usually a red flag. I mean, it's usually like, okay, what do you want from me? What are you trying to sell me? What are you trying to sell me? And like 80% of the time, 90% of the time, she is trying to sell you something. Like even here on the Strip, like, and I'm sure it's happened to you, like just some good-looking women, some hot women, like, hey, where are you from? But and then you quickly realize she's a working girl, right?
Sure.
Tell me that doesn't happen on the Strip?
Yes, and there would be a red flag, and I see that point. But then where's the line between that and like a girl who's just like a concert groupie or something, who just wants to throw herself at some guy
musician?
Because he's a musician, a Chad, you know what I mean? So where do you how do you reconcile the two archetypes there?
How do you reconcile it?
Well, like, you know what I mean? Because like, would you say that if a girl approaches you and you're, a high status man, does that mean that she really likes you, or does that mean that she's trying to get something out of you? And
I would feel that. I feel like she's kind of opportunistic. So I've noticed, like, since I got the Lamborghini, it has been a lot easier to meet women. So yeah, having the right car and like status. I go to car shows sometimes, and like women would be like, "Oh, I could feel it."
But
I'm like, wow.
but that's the thing though. Then what's the point of becoming high value if that's going to basically make you think that the women who are approaching you or chasing you or interested in you are all of a sudden they're full of red flags because they're seeing you as a target?
Yeah, I mean, I think women are just opportunistic to begin with, but. Yeah, especially when they see you and you have the lifestyle, you have money, you have a car, you have the Lamborghini. Obviously, they're more drawn to that, right? Because women want resources. Women want abundance. They don't want scarcity. They want abundance.
They want status. Yeah, they chase status.
But not just financially, but just like in the relationship, she wants to be with a guy who has options, who has like, who's not living in scarcity. And I feel like that's where a lot of guys fall short, especially in their relationships, especially in marriages. Once the woman realizes that she is his only option, that's where the attraction just flips. Even if she liked him, and she chased him initially, that's where the attraction flips. And all of a sudden he's chasing because he doesn't want to lose her. And that just makes things worse. And it just becomes a snowball effect because then she really realizes like, shoot, I'm his only option. He can't do it any better than me. And I'm not advocating you go out there like, go cheat or anything like that. But as long as she knows that you can go out there and replace her, I felt like, that's more powerful than anything. Because I was in a 4-year relationship, and that was her biggest fear. It was like, Matt's going to go out and replace me. And I didn't cheat on her. But she felt like constantly like, oh, wait, he picked me up. He can replace me.
To be fair, though, do you feel like you see a little bit of that in reverse with men seeking attractive women who would also have options?
Men seeking attractive women with options?
I mean, obviously, attractive women... men want attractive women. Attractive women are probably going to have options too.
Absolutely. So even cute, like chunky girls have options these days, which is insane.
Of course. But that's the thing is, like I said, and so, but that's the thing is the fact that average women still have options. So women have the privilege of being more picky, and I think that because of hypergamy, women are able to expect more out of men than men can expect out of women, and so I would like to see some type of way to kind of just restore some balance. I think everything is so skewed and lopsided right now that men are just kind of stuck, settling for an unfair deal. And so I think that we can keep telling men to just level up, but I mean, it's just, at what point are you overpaying? It's just, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, we're completely overpaying now, but I already felt like we were kind of overpaying even as far back as like the 90s and early 2000s. But let me ask you this, how do we restore balance to the force? How do we fix this? What are your solutions for this? Because I know you and Pearl discussed this. I didn't agree with all of it, but you know.
Well, no, I appreciate. Like I said, I mean, you know, people can challenge me on stuff, but this should be an exchange of ideas, and we're all just trying to figure things out.
Sure.
I would like to see more people trying to debate these solutions, but I've talked about this on Pearl. I think that prostitution should be legal. I think that would help alleviate some of the hoflation, because I believe that sex is kind of the ultimate power. That is women's, you know, beauty is women's agency, sexuality is their, you know, is their power. And I think that if it was properly regulated and it was, you know, cheap and accessible, I think it would kind of, you know, restore some balance there, because I think what's happening is, you know, I think that there has to be some type of competition for women. Right. Because right now they basically just have this exclusive monopoly, and like I said, it's like when you have a monopoly in any other, you know, business or any kind of a commodity. Sorry, when it comes to the business world, we have these antitrust laws to break up those monopolies, and I think that I mean, look, I did an interview with.
Wait, before you go there, I don't want to like get too far away from the legalized prostitution, because I know you guys brought that up with Pearl and everything, and
sure.
That's the thing that I kind of disagreed with, because I'm like, having coached guys and for so many years now, right? And having taken guys out to do actual pickup and learning their stories, and I always like to get to know the person, like, where are you coming from? Even guys who find my channel, I'm like, you know, they're usually coming from a really bad breakup, really messy divorce, and I'm like, okay, what are you looking for now? And they want to meet another woman, and then they tell me. I mean, when I listen to these guys, even like guys who are high status, who can get girls easily, even they. Like, sex is the last thing. Like, the first things they mention are she has to be kind, generous, you know, like sweet, nurturing, all of the above, feminine. Never are they like, she has to give a mean blowjob. She has to friggin', you know, do me dirty and all this. I mean, so that's like the last thing.
But sex is a priority to these guys. A lot of guys, you know, want to get laid, right?
I think love and companionship, from what I found, is surprisingly, that's
okay.
That's
so let me ask you.
That's what they're looking for.
So do you think most men are looking for long-term or short-term options? Because I think the red pill.
I think long-term.
Well, this is the problem. I don't think that the red pill has a solution for long-term options. I think their solution focuses more on short-term gains, because it's like you know, like increase your value, increase your status, so you can. It's all about building attraction, gain the attraction of the women. But when you're talking about any kind of long-term,
but those are long-term traits that, I mean, that will help you in life, and you know, and not just dating, but everything else, like business.
Well, sure. I mean, you know, building more confidence, and you know, obviously being more successful, things like that. But you know, I think that when it comes to looking for a long-term solution, I think that as long as the laws are the way they are, it's just really not a safe bet for men to invest long-term in these women, because I think that it's just, you know, they get married, and then all of a sudden, you know, 5-10 years down the road, it's not. They're not happy, and then all of a sudden they want to pull the ripcord. So what's the solution? I mean, we all, you know, we look for a long-term partnership, and then all of a sudden we get covenant marriage, and we don't actually sign, you know, the state contract. Is that basically what the solution is? Because I don't even know if the church will even allow. I mean, do you see a big rise in covenant marriages where men are not actually, like, you know, signing any paperwork? And not only that, but I've interviewed women on the street, and I said, would you get married if it was just a religious ceremony with no government paperwork? And a lot of women are just like, absolutely not, I'm out.
Yeah, because they want the money, and they want the resources.
They want the security.
They want the contract.
They want the contract and the security. So I just don't see the solution in that. Not only that, but also, even when we talk about the passport bros, we say, okay, go to another country, find a good, feminine, submissive, traditional woman to be a wife, but don't bring her back here. Why? Because of the laws. So once again, I mean, the laws are always going to be that Achilles heel.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we need to fix the laws, but again, like, not to veer off track, because I want to talk about the prostitution thing, because I know you're a big advocate of that, and we talked about that the last time we met up. We were at the Center Bar at Mirage.
Yes.
Man, R.I.P. Mirage. I love that casino. Why do I have to tear down the Mirage? Why didn't they go tear down the?
It's going to be a hard rock now. We're going to have another hard rock
or something.
What do we have, like 3 hard rocks now? 4 hard rocks?
I guess, but they're building that guitar out there and everything.
Yeah. So.
But okay, like, say your solution is you know, legalized prostitution.
I say a solution, not the solution.
Not the, but A. So let's clarify that.
Okay.
But again, like, okay, just based on my own experience coaching guys in the real world, I know, like, I've never had not a single one go, you know what, all I'm looking for is just sex. I just want to bang the world, and I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but I don't attract those type of guys. The guys who come to me are usually looking to use the material to try to find a woman, meet a good woman, and have a long-term relationship. Okay. And granted, a lot of them have, obviously not all of them have, but a lot of them have. So when it comes to the prostitution thing, and I think I mentioned this to you before, is I feel like if it was legalized everywhere, it wouldn't really make much of a dent in the problem, because I feel like the guys who go to prostitutes and who pay for sex, have that transactional relationship with prostitutes, those type of guys are going to be the type of guys, they're just going to be more of those type of guys, which are generally like the lower value males. And guys who really don't want to work on themselves, don't want to have to put in the work, don't want to have to learn social skills. And it's just like an easy fix, almost like, okay, I want sex, I'm just going to go credit card and pay for it. And it's unrewarding. I feel like a lot of guys want to actually go do the work, build their lives up, become high value men, build a business, make more income, get jacked, get ripped, get it, look smacks, as they say in, I think the black pill, like look smacks, and then try to get the best girl they can. And it is more rewarding, and this is why I always tell my channel, like, I hate dating apps. I don't like the idea of that, because it's always more rewarding to walk up to a girl, like here in Vegas, in a casino, for example, start talking to her, next thing you know, you're on a date together. Next thing you know, you're kissing, you're making out. Next thing you know, she's your girl, she's your girlfriend. Rather than, like, getting one of these escorts who you can easily call here and be like, can you give me some company? So it's not, and it's not only that, but it's also, when it comes to like prostitution, wouldn't you think it would demoralize like society, men, humanity, women, and our STD rate would explode? I think like there'd be like loads of STDs.
Well, okay, I've addressed a lot of these issues I've made like at least 4 or 5 episodes about this, and I keep exploring these topics. But definitely on what you're saying, I absolutely agree. It's not the ideal situation, but just like everything else I keep saying, I believe it's just another gynocentric cope. I think that
that would be a cope, right?
Of course it's a cope.
Okay.
Prostitution is a cope because I think that
it's like going to a strip club. It's a cope.
Well, of course, because ideally, men would like. I mean, it's like OnlyFans is a cope. Those men who are watching OnlyFans would rather be having a
porn is cope.
They'd rather be living that lifestyle. They'd rather be making their own OnlyFans with their favorite creator instead of actually like watching it. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're watching OnlyFans, it's kind of like being a cuck. You know what I mean? You're watching some other guy, with another woman, as opposed to, I don't know. I think that ideally, you would like to find a woman and attract her genuinely and have, intimacy and have a relationship and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that
and that's still possible. I mean, it is still possible.
Yes, but here's my question. If men could get sex anytime they wanted, would there be any reason to be with a woman other than love?
If men could get sex anytime they wanted,
would there be any reason to be with a woman other than love?
I still think that men would just naturally gravitate towards finding somebody that they can build something with long term and build a family and like have a house and all that.
Because I think even in Japan, I think they even have like women who are wives who say, okay, my husband can go to a prostitute, but don't tell me about it. And it's actually kept some marriages together. So it's just one of those things where I think that men should be able to have the option to have something rather than nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's because like men in general, we like variety, right? I mean, we just...
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But well, that's the other thing too. I think that's another version of male hypergamy. I think that men, would like to have the younger, hotter chick. I mean, look at Leonardo DiCaprio. Whenever his girlfriend turns 25, he goes for a younger, hotter chick. Why? Because he can. But right now, only the high-status men can exercise their hypergamy.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
True.
But I think that another version of male hypergamy is men wanting multiple women, because the most powerful high-status men throughout history have had harems of women.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we sit here and we say, well, women can't change because of their female nature, but then why are we trying to change men? Aren't men hardwired to be a certain way?
No, yeah, we are. I mean...
So it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, I think that it's completely delusional to sit here and say that we just have to accept the way things are when it's all just a product of the culture and the laws. It's just so skewed one way, and we need to have some checks and balances to restore the sexual marketplace where it makes sense and men aren't forced to overpay. And like I said, if it was the other way, then women would be the ones who are overpaying because they'd have to. And there's evidence of them having to overpay because they did. They had to go to, finishing school and etiquette training when men had the leverage. So I think that prostitution, going back to that argument, would give men some leverage because women wouldn't be able to just sit here and say, well, sex is all I bring to the table. Right now, what we have now is worse than prostitution because men are paying for the opportunity to maybe get sex. And I think that if we just could kind of nix that out of the equation, women will be forced to bring more to the table. And that's kind of what we want from them. We want them to be better partners. And like I said, I think women can be spoiled and lazy because men are so starved for intimacy that women can just rely on that, and that's their only bargaining chip.
Okay, yeah, and I agree with you. All right, I agree with you. But I think at this point in time, we're beyond the laws. Culture needs to shift. And this is why, and I think I mentioned this to you the last time we did our interview. We did our screen interview, and then I kind of got clipped for it. I talked about AI girlfriends, right?
Oh yeah.
And I felt like I got clipped for it because I did say somewhere towards the end of that, like I would never do it personally because to me I feel like it's like super creepy and like borderline satanic, right? I mean it's weird. I would not want to jump into a bed with a mechanical bot, but I get some guys, I mean, even if it looks super realistic, feels realistic, I'm like, I would feel creeped out. However, I did bring that up on your channel. I said, because I'm a realist, right? Even though I would never do it myself, I'm a realist, and I was like, I really believe the shift is gonna happen, and it's already happening where they do have, we have like very, very early stages of AI girlfriends on there's certain apps you can download and whatnot, but they're already building these robots in Japan. They still look creepy to me, but it's a matter of time before they look more and more realistic. And I've had a number of students say, you know what, Em, I'm just gonna wait for one of those robots, and I'm still obsessed over my ex. And do you think do you think they'll make the robot look like my ex? I'm like, I'm sure they're gonna sell whatever and whenever. And I go, but if you're gonna do something like that, do it early because at some point they're even gonna regulate the AI girlfriends. They're gonna be like, nope, you can't just pull her pants down whenever you want and have sex with her. She has rights. We're gonna get to that point, guys. So
God, that's crazy.
If you're gonna do something when these bots become more mainstream and they look realistic, there's gonna be any sort of technologies, there's going to be this Wild West era, usually the first 5-10 years where you could get away with anything. Like when the internet started, you could just put up websites and sell all sorts of crap and you could make millions of dollars. It's going to be the same thing with the bots until the government catches on and they're going to be like, oh, whoa, these guys, it's like they don't want us to have fun. They're like, these guys are having way too much of a party and no, we have to regulate. You cannot just have sex with your AI robot unless you are caring for her, recharging her batteries often, making sure she's oiled and lubed, and all these restrictions. But anyway, not to get off point, my whole theory for this, and I did a video on my channel about this, how I predicted, that's the title, POA predicts the end of feminism, the end of women's rule. I really believe it's going to come with not the prostitution, but the AI girlfriends, the bots. Again, they already have some. And you know what? Who's that Kardashian? Not Kim.
Khloe
Kardashian, but yeah, her. I think it's Khloe. But her ex-husband just had an AI robot girlfriend created in her image.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she divorced him. He's obsessed with her. He has the funds. He has the money to do it. So he had an AI girlfriend robot that is in his house that I'm sure he's having sex with. This guy has the money to do it, right? I'm sure it is very costly. He probably paid a few $100,000 for it. But with any technology, it's going to get cheaper and cheaper. Maybe the bots start at $35,000 or $25,000. They'll get cheaper and cheaper, like a VCR. And they're already selling robots. Because I mean, personally, I was looking for a robot butler to vacuum and clean the house, and I'm like, we're not there yet, but they're working on it. And they have these prototypes they're teaching how to vacuum your floor, how to fold your laundry. So we're not far off from that. But anyway, my point is, when it comes to the AI girlfriends, because they can make it look like anybody you want it to look like Britney Spears, you look like Britney Spears. You want to look like your ex-girlfriend, your ex-wife, like this Khloe Kardashian's ex-husband, you got the money, they will do it. And that kind of not only replaces the sexual aspect, but it replaces the emotional aspect, which I feel like these guys are really looking for. And that's what the red pill really, really hammers on, is how guys are more romantic and more emotional than women are. And so with these AI girlfriends, I feel like they're going to get not only that companionship and sex, but I mean, she's going to be programmed to love them, to never talk back to him.
whatever you want.
We're trying to engineer each other out of the equation, basically.
I mean, yeah, but I feel like that will turn the tide, because a lot of guys, I would say like half of the world is pretty much incels, at least half. Like half of the dudes out there, especially the younger generation, because if you look at the statistics, it's very alarming, like how guys I think it's like under 25 or under 30 have never had a girlfriend, never been on a date.
Is it like 60% of men are not interested in pursuing relationships right now?
Or interested in pursuing relationships, yeah. So it's because of the way the women are.
Yeah.
So I see this, even though I don't agree with the whole AI robot thing, I think it's like, again, it's just not something that, I think most guys would, but I think that is going to turn the tide. I really believe, because it's going to give men what they really want, which is companionship, love, loyalty, and
So here's
sex.
Here's an interesting question I'll ask you that I've asked actual sex workers at the AVN Awards. Mm-hmm. Which do you think provides you more intimacy? An OnlyFans subscription with a real girl, or sex with a robot?
Which provides you more intimacy?
Yes.
Assuming these robots get to where I think they're going to end up being, I would say the robot.
Interesting. Because when you think about OnlyFans,
because OnlyFans, you're just like logging onto.
Well, it's a parasocial relationship.
Yeah.
But one of the girls I was talking to said,
it's like watching porn.
So I said to this girl when I was interviewing this sex worker, this cam girl, and she said, well, robots will never replace a real flesh and blood human.
I think they will.
And I'm thinking,
predicting that.
So you know what I'm saying? I'm like
2035 is the year.
I said to her, well, wait a second. You're not even like interacting with your customers in real space. You're connecting with them virtually. So, like I said, it's like you're basically an avatar. You're not even a real, flesh and blood person anyway.
Yeah.
So, when you think about it, it's kind of weird when but then when you think about prostitutes, that's actually a real flesh and blood human. And I'm just thinking, well, why are we sitting here and waiting for that? And also, there's also this idea that, okay, maybe men would become really spoiled and lazy if they could just go get their rocks off with a prostitute. But at the same time, when you look at I think prostitution here in Nevada was big in like the 1930s, and that's the men who built the Hoover Dam. I mean, those were very strong, masculine men in the past. So
like mobsters too.
You know what I'm saying? So this idea that just because men could go get their rocks off and go get sex with a prostitute anytime they want, does that necessarily mean men would become lazy and not work on themselves? I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that either.
What do you mean?
There's this idea that maybe men wouldn't self-improve and become really spoiled and lazy if they could just go to a local brothel. Would men have to work? Would men feel the need to improve themselves if they could just go get sex anytime they want, or would everyone just turn into a lazy, incel bum or whatever it is, and then they just say, oh, well, I don't have to groom myself or be attractive in any way or dress well because I can just go to the local brothel and just pay for it.
I do think that would happen. I mean, I could use another example of that. Is like I had a friend of mine. That wanted to lose weight. It's funny because we both went on this journey. I was like putting on weight for a little while. I was talking about this on my channel, and I just started losing it the past like 6 months to a year. The past like in 2025, I'm like, I'm gonna start eating healthier and start getting fit again, back to my normal weight I was, before I started to let myself go a little bit. And my friend was like, I'm just gonna take that Ozempic. I think it was like a pill or something like that. I thought it was a shot, but he was like taking these pills, and he did lose weight. He lost weight quicker than me in the beginning, and he got in better shape. However, a few months later, the weight was right back on as soon as he got off of that. So he took a shortcut, as opposed to, I just told him, why don't we just eat healthier? Once you eat healthier with me, it's like, once you break the habit of eating bad food and junk food, and drinking soda, like I haven't drank soda like for almost a long time now, but you start breaking those habits. So, but he didn't want to do that. It was like the shortcut, just like prostitution. It's the shortcut, right? It's a quick fix. So he lost weight temporarily, but then now he's back to square one, right? And he's like, maybe I just need to get back on that shot or that pill. And I go, no, you just need to discipline yourself and have a little self-efficacy to eat healthier, and you need to program yourself with better habits. Can
I ask
and
you
it makes you stronger. It makes you stronger as a man.
Do you think that Passport Bros is almost like a you're making it easier on yourself where you don't have to necessarily bring as much to the table? It's almost like a shortcut to becoming high value, because obviously the demands of women in other cultures are going to be less than Western women.
Right. Right.
So is that
To a
is
degree.
that almost like a similar thing? Like, if prostitution would, kind of lead to men being spoiled and lazy, is the same thing going to happen when men can just travel to another country? Are they going to say, hey, I don't have to necessarily work on myself because the women here don't demand as much?
I don't know necessarily. I think it would depend on the type of guy that guy is, because for him to go overseas to look for a woman means that he's completely given up on women here. And I really believe that there are, as much as I bag on these American women and Western women, there are some gems out there. You just have to look. You just have to put some effort into it. The majority of women you meet are going to be pretty rotten, terrible people, self-centered, self-absorbed, selfish, because that's the culture we're living in right now. But there are some that go against that tide. Right, and I know you and Pearl were talking about conservative influencers are really just like covert feminists. I totally agree with that. It just depends on the woman, because I have met some women who would not consider themselves conservative but are feminine, and they're submissive, and they're non-combative, and I'm like, okay, that's weird, because in an ideological sense you would be identified as a Christian, not whatever you are.
Well, what percentage of red pill influencers would you say lean conservative?
Red pill influencers,
Yeah.
as far as the men go or the women? Because now we got a lot of women in this space. Unfortunately.
Honestly, both. To me, I don't think it makes a difference whether you're a conservative. When it comes to covert feminists, we're identifying the covert feminists on the women's side, but why would it make a difference, if they're saying the same things, man or woman? If you're basically sitting here and you're blaming men and you're basically saying, men have, all these duties and responsibilities and we need men to man up so that they can be better servants to, provide for women. It's just more gynocentrism. It's just, unfortunately, I see a lot of gynocentrism coming from the feminists, the tradcons, and also the red pillars.
Okay.
So there's much overlap, and we need to recognize the gynocentrism no matter who it's coming from.
So are you saying, just so I understand, so are you saying so men improving themselves, men learning game, men learning, how to be the best versions of themselves, they're doing it solely for women?
Not necessarily, but I think that in a lot of ways, I know that some influencers have talked about that, but a lot of it is. A lot of it that I just wonder, would a man need to have status and game if women genuinely liked men? I think that.
I think women do genuinely like men, but I think things are so screwed up right now because a lot of them have inflated senses of value, because again, the technology and the internet and all that has given them access to chads all around the world that they didn't have before.
Okay, once again,
Yeah.
So if it was reversed and men had access to all these incredible women without having to have status in game, just for basically existing,
Yeah.
Don't you think it would be hard for?
Of course.
It would be the opposite.
Yeah.
Women would be the ones out here with the feminine burden of performance.
But when would that ever happen? In a real world, that's not going to
Well,
happen.
like I said, that's why I think that prostitution would kind of give men. It would basically give men.
You think it would bring some balance back?
It would basically neutralize the power of the P that women have to basically control and exploit men. That's the ultimate power, and I think that power needs to be neutralized.
Okay, but I think we're forgetting men. What men value is scarce. Not scarcity. Men value things that are valuable. Because when you think of a prostitute, it's like sand. It's an abundant resource, right? It's something that, sure, it's not legal everywhere, but you know where you could go. You could go to Amsterdam and places like that if you really, really want a prostitute. But
it's even. Sorry, I didn't mean, just a real quick. It's legal here in Vegas.
Okay.
But it's very expensive.
Certain counties. Right?
Yes, but it's not accessible. It's like you don't have a red light district on the Strip, okay?
Yeah.
You have to go to a small town, about 2 hours away, and it's going to cost you a lot of money and stuff, right? Look at what happened with the whole pot industry and stuff, when you had dispensaries everywhere. You kind of shut down some of these black markets, and so it's kind of I think, would something similar happen there,
I think it would create a whole new black market if prostitution was legalized, because then you would have even more human trafficking. I think a lot of more women would be human trafficked.
You have to you regulate it. That's the thing. You regulate it. But one other thing I just wanted to just interject real quick is I've seen other red pillars just kind of touch upon this, and they. If you want me to name names, I can. But I'm just saying, I've seen people debate this. I've interviewed, some big influencers in the space about this, and they've literally said it would be a game changer. And
Depends
so,
on the influencer, because a lot of these guys I feel are kind of living more of like a vacuous lifestyle, and that's fine. And I say this as a lifelong pickup artist myself, and I'm kind of like, because I've been doing this for so long, I've gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, and I always say this when I sell my programs, I'm like, you could either use this for good or evil. I hope you use it for good. I hope you don't use it for evil, because it could be used for both, like anything. But when it comes to the prostitution, I just see like more of those like lower tier guys or lower value guys who don't want to work on themselves and just want a quick fix, just like a Band-Aid fix, go to a prostitute, have sex, but then once they're done having sex, what do they call like post-nut clarity? After they have that post-nut clarity, like they're still lonely. They're still lonely, right? They still want companionship. You can't take that prostitute like on a trip with you to Vegas.
But with all due respect, though, let's not negate the fact that there are plenty of high-class escorts and high-status men who basically say, hey, I'm going to the big corporate party and I want to hire a beautiful escort to come with me. Yeah. So, I mean, if these high-class escorts are commanding these huge prices, you're not going to get low-tier guys. You're going to have a lot of high-status men. Time is a premium for them, and they don't have the ability, the luxury of time to say, I got to, take a woman out and wine and dine her. They just want to go. They're in Dubai and they're saying, I want a beautiful piece of arm candy, with me and stuff. So this idea that low status men are the only ones who buy escorts, I think is not. It's not genuine, or it's disingenuous. I think it's
not really, because what you're mentioning here is the exception, not the rule. Because most guys who go to brothels are exactly what we're talking about. Like when you think of brothels, when you go to like any brothel, we could go here in Vegas. We go to any brothel, you're not going to see like multimillionaire, high status dudes in there.
Well, those are the guys who are ordering from back pages, and they're getting the getting the high class escorts and stuff. Yeah. But I still think that. I mean, shout out to CGA again, but he's like, all men pay. You're paying whether you're low status or high status.
And not only that, but like when it comes to those high status guys that you're just mentioning who would go for the high escort, high class hookers, those guys do have access to other women, and they don't actually need a prostitute. For them, it might just be something like like something that they do like once in a blue moon or whatever. But
perhaps.
But these guys usually, if they're high status, these are the top tier guys that, according to the dating apps and their statistics, are getting like 80% of the women on those apps. They're all dating the same dudes.
But then, to also be fair, let's just acknowledge that there's a app called Seeking Arrangements, which is basically all about women seeking high status men. And it's like, well, what's the point of being high status if you're going to basically end up paying for it anyway? You should just be able to attract those women without having to have all that.
The whole seeking arrangement thing, I believe, that sounds to me like that's more of a companionship thing, which is what I was arguing. It's like guys want companionship,
sugar babies, right?
Love. Yeah, they're sure they're going to be like wine and dine, but those guys actually want to do those things. They want to be on a vacation with this girl, have like nice arm candy, not just go into this like bedroom, have sex, and then leave. To them, it's just kind of like an unfulfilling experience.
Well, it's just a longer, drawn-out version of prostitution, I think. It's still basically the same thing. You're still paying for a relationship.
But then you can make that argument about any relationship and all relationships are prostitution, right? So we're blurring the lines here. We're blurring the lines.
Now you sound like me, okay? Because basically, look. I've said that I believe that I think that dating is transactional. It's a monetized dating market, as Coach Greg Adams says. I basically said that dating is just a loose form of prostitution. I've done episodes about this, where I basically just said, what is the difference between, paying for the opportunity to maybe get it and just paying for it? You know what I mean? So I get it. It's obviously better if you have a woman's genuine attraction. I would choose that every time.
And that's what we aim for in the red pill. It's like genuine attraction.
Of course.
And as a pickup artist, that's what I want guys to get: genuine attraction.
Yes, and I would agree with that too. The problem is, I don't think most women genuinely like most men, because most men have to bribe women to be together. Because whether you want to call it prostitution or you want to call it being a provider, at the end of the day, most women are not interested in broke men.
Oh, sure, of course not.
So at the end of the day,
it's a resource thing. But that's something I feel like is evolutionary, because we're spawned from caves, basically, right? We had the hunters and gatherers, and women needed to get with the strongest tribe and the strongest men to ensure their survival. So I feel like, this is just the present day, modern day version of that.
Sure, but I also
to a certain degree.
But I also think that throughout history, this idea that men were also in business too. Men sought women who had fortunes and money as well and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that. there's a lot of different cultures. It depends on the culture. I think that obviously, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think the problem with the red pill, or I think the criticism that we have in the red pill is that these women are now making their own money. They're graduating, at rates much higher than men, and they're getting these corporate jobs. They have their own dough, yet they still expect men to pay. And it's like, at this point, it's like, okay, and this is what I teach my guys. I'm like, if she's going to act like a feminist, you treat her like one. However, and some guys will be surprised to say this, to hear me say this, but I'm not against chivalry. I'm not against being a gentleman. I don't mind opening the girls' doors. I enjoy doing that stuff because I'm a guy. I feel like most guys, they won't admit that, especially in these very red pillish days, especially in our community. But guys, we just like doing those things, right? We like feeling like the man. We like feeling like the gentleman. However, I will only do those things for women who are willing to act like a lady. And I feel like, some of them are, but a good number of them are not, and they have to kind of be, I don't know if dominated is the word, but they have to see that you have the stronger frame. Because I've gotten women that I've met initially who are just very rigid and very almost combative initially, but I knew, I'm like, okay, I could turn this girl into a little kitten if I wanted to, and I've dated a few like that where it started out where she was very very demanding and boisterous, and then because I was able to just override her frame and get her to follow my lead and let her know hey, this is not going to be like your past, beta male relationships. And I will tell the girl that. I'm like, every guy you dated before me was a complete simp. That's not going to happen here. We're going to do things my way. This is the way it's going to be. And not so many words, right? Because women they have huge egos. So if you say it like that, they go, what? But you just keep demonstrating through your value. You keep demonstrating that you're the leader. And then eventually the girl falls into your lead and she's like, okay.
So let me ask you this.
Because I think women are naturally wired to follow our lead, but most guys, and this is where I hold guys responsible, have just fallen into this frame where they've been brainwashed to believe that they should follow the women's lead, right? Because that will lead to sex. And it's like, no, that doesn't lead to sex. That leads to you getting stuck in her friend zone. You want her to follow your lead, you have to be able to take those risks, call her out, check her when she says something dumb, says something stupid or retarded. As Myron Gaines would say, because women are kind of retarded like that. You have to check them when they do stuff like that. And the more you check your girl, the more you let her know, hey, these are my boundaries, do not cross them, or what you said is stupid, or this is why it doesn't make sense, the more she's going to start falling in your frame,
So if a woman needs a strong masculine man in order to be in her feminine, would a man need a soft feminine woman in order to be in his masculine?
No.
Why is it different?
Because men should be self-sufficient that way. I mean, we teach in the red pill, no matter what, we teach this in pickup artistry too. I mean, you should not be relying on the woman for anything. I mean, you should be completely 100% self-reliant, and you should not be doing things in order to, get her validation, right? They should all be for you, essentially.
So that's the concept of conditional femininity. Women's role is conditional, but the man's role is static. So, it's just.
But I think men want to do these things. We want to self-improve. We want to get in the best shape we can. We want to be.
Well, I would say if it's it could be a choice, but should it be an expectation? Should it be an obligation? Because are men a monolith? Men all come in different shapes and sizes and different cultures, things like that. So why do we kind of apply this kind of blanket? You know what I mean? Like men just kind of all need to be traditionally masculine and hold them to this standard.
Because I think this comes from evolution. Just how, again, we came out of caves and we did the hunting and the women did the gathering. And there was a show actually about 4 or 5 years ago. A bunch of YouTubers covered this. I mean, because you would think oh well, this is modern day, you Neanderthal. Why are you talking like that? Well, there was a show called Bear Grylls Island where they had men versus women. I'm sure you saw that episode.
Of course, yeah.
And you saw. This is 2021, 2022. They dropped a set of men and a set of women. I think it was a dozen men, a dozen women onto this island for what was 60 or 90 days. And they were just go out there and survive.
Yeah.
And these people who are modern day human beings, Homo sapiens, were dropped onto this island and they reverted back to their natural primal roles, right? Of hunters and gatherers. You saw the women just really just screwing
But
up.
at the same time, I mean, wouldn't that be acknowledging that technology is the X factor in all this? I mean, obviously, the fact that we had the birth control pill and the fact that we've had all these technological changes now with these AI bots and everything. So I mean, when we talk about evolution, I mean, I understand that there might be the human nature aspect of everything, but doesn't the technology kind of like, I mean, we're living in a civilized society, so how are we using our biological instincts to justify everything when there's certain, we're almost allowed to kind of step outside of those biological roles because we have the luxury to do that because of the technology.
Yeah. But I think if we were to get wiped out tomorrow, say like an asteroid hit, wiped out half the planet, wiped out the satellites in space, and we were, we didn't have technology, we had to start from the ground up. I think we, just like on that TV show, we would just revert back to our natural roles. Like feminism would disappear overnight.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like Kevin Samuels said that feminism is only a first world option because in other cultures survival is paramount. So yes, that's absolutely.
Totally agree with him.
Men need women to reproduce. Women need men to survive and reproduce.
Yeah.
So absolutely agree with him on that. Here's a funny question I want to get your take on. If women only want to date alpha males, why haven't all the beta males gone extinct?
If women only wanted an alpha male, why haven't the beta males all gone extinct?
If women only
over time, yes.
over time. Yeah, why aren't all men today? Like, why haven't all the alpha males passed their genes along, and now we're just living in a society where all men are Chads and all women are Stacys?
I haven't heard that in a while, Stacy.
Yeah. Okay. Just
yeah. I mean, no, that's a great question. Why haven't all the beta males been stamped out? Yeah, I mean it's DNA.
Basically, I'm saying if we're going by the evolutionary argument, why hasn't evolution just led us to this superhuman species? Where basically
but I think
how have men gotten so weak? You know what I mean?
Even in the most beta dudes, you can still see traits of masculinity in them. Like even like the most like simpish beta guy,
they still grow beards, right?
You'll still grow beards, but you'll still see like certain behaviors in them that, on some level, maybe it might not be as high as like the strongest alpha male of the pack, but on some level he'll have some sort of masculine traits like protection, just masculine traits. Yeah.
Okay. So then, what determines what masculine traits would you say are natural versus are what's learned and what's natural behavior?
What's learned and what's natural behavior?
Yeah. Would you say that there's a nature versus nurture element to masculinity? There's things about masculinity that are taught, and there's things that are just natural.
I think there are definitely things that are just natural, and you see this anytime, again, like we're in like crisis situations, and you see men and women just revert back to their roles. Like if a ship's going down, or if a plane is like getting ready to crash land in the ocean. Everybody just reverts right back to their natural roles, where men are the protectors, and women depend on the men to save them.
So let me ask you this: if men are natural protectors, why do you think that?
And providers.
But if you think that men are natural protectors, why are so many women choosing the bear? Why are so many women afraid of men? If men were natural protectors, then wouldn't women be more likely to feel safe around men than feel afraid of them?
How?
Well, look, I think a lot of women think that men are predators and predators. It's like, obviously men are the biggest protectors of women. They're not the biggest,
That in itself is social engineering. So that, is a fault of social engineering. That's a fault of feminism. That's a fault of women's suffrage. I mean, I really believe that's where feminism started. It was like 100 years ago, women got the right to vote. And that's something else we could dive into. But yeah, a lot of red pillars don't believe women should vote. I'm in that bucket too. But I would go further with that, where I think not only women, but I think emotionally unhinged men should not be allowed to vote. Mentally unstable people should not be allowed to vote. People who don't own property should not be allowed to vote.
I would add that I think that you should be you should be required to take a basic civics test.
Yes.
Basic civics test.
I was about to say that too. A basic civics test and a basic competency test, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is 2 + 2?
Yeah.
Is this a male or a female? Just basic things like that. If you can't pass, you shouldn't vote, right? So there should definitely be some more requirements for voting. I don't like the idea of some 18-year-old chick fresh out of high school who's never had a job, lives at home with her parents, and has been brainwashed by feminism. I don't like the idea of her being able to cancel out somebody else's vote.
Yeah, but not only that, look at women. I mean, a lot of them tend to be one-issue voters. I mean, it's all about, women's right to choose. And what's interesting too, I did an episode about this called Right to Vote, and I said, okay, women are more likely to be able to vote on abortion than men can vote on child support. So we talk about women not having the right to vote, and I'm like, okay, well, men's issues aren't even on the ballot. Wouldn't that basically equate to men not having the right to vote, which applies to right now?
Yeah.
So why are we always talking about women not having the right to vote? I mean, you could make the case that women have more rights,
They do.
than men do. And so once again, it's like, why is there no political arm of the men's movement to actually? We agree on a lot of stuff.
The problem is simps. To just answer your question quickly, because we always talk about the simps, and I'm like, and I've done so many videos about how the simps are the real ill of the world that are keeping these laws, and they're not protecting guys. I mean, it's not women who allowed for feminism to blossom. It's really men. We opened the door to that. We allowed it, and we still allow it to this day. And I've always made the argument, if we banded together as men and we just locked arms and all as men, right, and just said, hey, ladies, feminism's over. Guess what? We're changing all these laws. Guess what? You're not going to be able to do, abortion on demand, or, just do this, and this. Divorce your husband, get alimony.
But the problem I see, though, is I think that women have a sisterhood. They can, women might not get along in their interpersonal relationships, but they're all united when it's against men.
Yeah.
They can all come together. Go ahead, sorry.
No, but I'm just saying, to your point, if we all locked arms and said, that's it, ladies, they can't stop us.
But this is what I'm getting at, though. Right? I think that there's more of a sisterhood between women than there's a brotherhood between men.
Oh, yeah,
and the reason why is because there's a hierarchy of men, because men are pitted against each other to compete for women.
Right.
And half the men, or most men, are raised with gynocentric conditioning. Men are more likely to support. See, women will support other women, and men will also support women before they'll support men.
Yes.
So it's not just
simps. We call them simps.
Right. And the problem is you have men who hate on other men.
Absolutely.
And so right. So how do we address that problem?
But
I mean, that's what everybody talks about. I think that we have to attack the gynocentric conditioning that is affecting men and turning them into simps.
And this all boils down to society just kind of like emotionalizing everybody. I feel like society is so warped right now. I've never seen people just so soft, so easily triggered, so thin-skinned. You could just say the most, things that you don't even mean to come off that way. Like, what? And they're like ready to cancel. You have it in your interviews. It happens to me. I'm like, what did I say?
And here's another thing too, by the way. Also, everybody talks about, we need more masculinity. Well, here's the problem. When I'm at the rodeo and I interview some of these cowboys, some of the most masculine men, and they're some of the biggest simps.
Yes.
So, like I said, it's like some of the most masculine men are the biggest simps. So I don't think that masculinity is automatically the solution. I think that in some cases it might even be the problem.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, like when you talk about cowboys and stuff, because I like doing the bull riding. I like going to country bars. I get my cowboy hat on, and I know a lot of the guys out there are very gentlemanly, like to treat a lady like a lady. They would be totally just blown away if they heard any of my content, right? Like just very offended by it, because they're just like those very chivalrous, traditionally, like those type of men. But this is where the red pill comes in, right? Because you need to learn female nature. I've had so many guys who even just a few years ago hated me, messaged me, I hate you, I hate your content, how dare you say this about women, and oh my gosh, you're so wrong, women are beautiful creatures, and then come back 2-3 years later, sometimes shorter than that, after they get divorced, cheated on, wife took the kids, come back, and they're like, I have to tell you, I need to say an apology to you, I'm sorry, you were right, I'm going to spread your work. It's so funny, the shifts. Once it happens to them and they experience like female nature in its worst forms, then they're like willing to learn. And
But even when you talk about, wanting to be a gentleman and wanting to be chivalrous and things like that, where do you draw the line before you feel like, okay, now I'm taking too far and I'm simping? I mean, obviously, your rule is she has to be a lady. She has to kind of, be able to reciprocate in those ways, because obviously, a lot of these men feel like women just deserve this automatic respect. I think that's where you kind of run into that problem.
No, it's calibration. I mean, the big theme that we teach in pickup artistry is calibration. You're always calibrating. You guys who learn pickup and old mystery method, I don't know if you remember mystery.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so even mystery method used to say, like, in the game, you're constantly calibrating during your approach, during your rapport building, during the close, you're constantly calibrating. So nothing's ever fixated. So when it comes to like treating a woman like a lady and being chivalrous and opening her doors and pulling out her chair, it depends on her behavior. I'm always calibrating. Like some women, like initially might come off that way, like very ladylike, but say we sit at dinner and she says some things that are like very, because almost all these women have been brainwashed with feminism at this point. They think there's a gender pay gap, or they think that, men still have more rights than them. So they say things, and then I'll challenge them at dinner, and I'll say, so you think you're oppressed? You think you're oppressed as a white woman, young woman, living in the United States, most prosperous country in the world? You are oppressed, right? And then I can make them feel stupid. And if they accept it, and they accept that accountability, like, okay, yeah, you might be right about that, right? But if they sit there and constantly like challenge, and I'm like, okay, you're getting your own car door. I'm gonna have the waiter split this bill, and you're on your own from here. Why don't you Uber home? So you're calibrating.
Yeah.
But that's what I found with a lot of these women. They're generally. That's why I always tell my subscribers, they're always gonna be over 30 without fail, over 30, and still single. That's what I refer to as damaged goods. Like 99% of the women, maybe 98%. I'll be a little more generous. 98% of women out there that you will meet that are over the age of 30 and still single are damaged goods. We call them DG. And so I teach my guys to avoid them, because the younger ones, even though they do still have some of that feminist brainwashing, social engineering, they can be deprogrammed, almost like in the Lost Boys, where they had the half vampires who haven't killed anybody yet. You can turn them back, right? You can still turn them back. And most of them I've been able to. So that's why I haven't really given up complete hope on women. But women over 30, yeah, they're pretty much hopeless at this point, that are still single and over 30. That's why I tell you guys, do not date women over 30 and still single if you're looking for a relationship, because I think that's a lot of the arguments but debate that we have in the red pill, and like Jonathan brings up.
When you talk about calibration, though, would you say that, because you've been, in the pickup community for quite some time, this is, a lot of, I would almost make the case, I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but that the red pill community almost came out of the pickup community.
It did come out of the pickup community.
So
all
basically,
of it did.
So can you talk a little bit about the transition?
Yeah.
About like what changed? How did we kind of get to where we are now?
Oh yeah, because I was there. I was there from the beginning. A lot of people don't realize this. I mean, I was there before Mystery. I was there before Rollo. I was there before all these guys, because I remember in the late 90s when the internet started to have these forums. I mean, this was like 98, 1999. I was looking for other guys to go out with and do like pickup and game, and then I found certain forums. I remember one was called So Suave, another one called Alt Fast Seduction. I think that was probably the first one I found. That was like around 1998, believe it or not. Some of you weren't even born yet. And I remember getting on those forums, and I was able to meet guys, go out with those guys. We would post our, what we call infield pickup stories on there. Mm-hmm. And then other guys started to gravitate towards it, because like people were posting wild stories about making out with girls and getting phone numbers. And back then, to get a phone number was a huge deal, because back in the 90s, before the internet, if you got a girl's number, there was at least a 50 to 75% chance she would end up becoming your girlfriend. Because back then, these girls would not just give you their number all willy-nilly like they do these days with their cell phone number, because they can easily block you or just mute you. Whereas before, when she gave you her phone number, she was giving you her home phone number. Mm-hmm. So, and usually that phone was in her room, so she had to pick up. And if a girl really wasn't interested in you, she would just give you a bogus number, which some did, and it's always a bummer. But when they gave you the real number, you knew it's on. And many of those women you would meet in field that gave you a phone number would become your girlfriend. So this was the early start of the whole like PUA stuff, was with the Alt Fast Seduction forum. And this was around from 1998 to about, I want to say 2004, 2005. You had another guy named Doc Love, mm-hmm. who was in the space. This is also when Tom Leykis was on the airwaves in LA. Yep. I remember listening to Tom Leykis, and it started to blow me away, because I'm picking up girls, and at the same time, I'm seeing what he's talking about with these girls were picking up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's almost like I didn't want to hear it. I was having too much fun. And he was like a dad giving us warnings, like, hey, God, boys, yeah, she can do this, and like, you don't want to listen to it, right? So then the Pickup Artist came out, the VH1 television show with Mystery. I don't know if you remember that.
And Matador.
And Matador, yeah. And I've gamed with Matador a number of times. Mm-hmm. I was hanging with Matador at the Saddle Ranch back in those days. Mm-hmm. And I think the height of it was around 2008, when it's like you could not walk into a venue in LA without like half of the dudes in there doing some form of game, pickup, or mystery method, or Neil Strauss, something they read from the book The Game. it was insane. It got to the point where the women knew the negs. Like the women, like, oh, are you negging me?
That's what I was going to get
they
to.
Were so on top of that.
They picked up on.
They picked up on that, yeah.
Okay.
So this was like 2008. This was the height. And then after 2008, I noticed the shift around 2009 where guys who were not getting success in field started to become disillusioned with the pickup community. And that's when I started to see the first bits of criticism. Oddly, I never saw it before then. It wasn't around until around 2009. I saw guys posting on the forums like, you guys are all, like jackasses. You guys are all like pussy beggars. You guys are all, and it's like, okay, where is this coming from? Where is this group coming from? It was guys who were not getting success with women. They started to form their own group, otherwise known as the early foundations of MGTOW. So this is where MGTOW started coming around. And then by 2010, that's when I started to notice people. I was like, what is this acronym? What is this? MGTOW? I didn't even know how to pronounce it. And then they're like, yeah, it's men going their own way. And then I started to look at these guys like, okay, but you still want to date women, don't you? You're not just like giving up on women. I didn't get that. And then fast forward a few years later, like by 2015, you started to see the emergence of the red pill, more people really jumping on that MGTOW bandwagon and going, hey, women are just exposing female nature, right? And now here we are at in 2025, and it's like now guys are shifting not only from the red pill but to the black pill, where it's gone to like complete nihilism, and they're just, it's like give up itis on like, screw women, I don't want to date. And the numbers show that. We just talked about that, how most younger men have never even been on a date, never had a girlfriend. And but to answer your question, where did all this come from? It did come from the pickup community. Like all this stuff, MGTOW, red pill, black pill, white pill, manosphere, the manosphere. It all comes from the pickup community. And who's like one of my biggest haters, like Rollo Tomasi, he doesn't like me. Oh. Yeah, he said in his videos, like he's admitted that this whole thing, the whole manosphere and the red pill, emerged from those early pickup artists. You're welcome, Rollo.
Well, my question is, if there are so many different voices in this community, in this space that can recognize the problems, why are there so many different creators, manosphere creators, who just don't get along with each other? What do you think that's all about?
I think that's just feminine behavior, to be honest with you, because that's not masculine behavior. That's not manly behavior, in my opinion. I think I've mentioned to you, like I've had a number of creators, especially during the height of my channel. It's kind of like the views have veered off since then. I think everybody's has really, because YouTube has been kind of like suppressing people, not only in the red pill space, but I noticed like anybody who wants to tell the truth, they like suppress those videos. And then the wackiest videos get all sorts of views, especially if they're like promoting gynocentrism. They get that, YouTube will put it on the first page. But the reason why we don't get along is because I think too many of these guys are too emotional. They're too like, because for me personally, I have never bothered to do a response video to anybody who's like hated on me, because my opinion is I will let my value speak for itself. I'll let my results speak for itself. That's how I was always taught growing up. My dad, he's like, just keep your mouth shut, let your results speak for itself. If your content's that good, if your message is that good, believe me, people will glom onto it. But if it isn't, if it sucks and you question it, guess what? I'm gonna go attack everyone else. It's very like feminine behavior to do that, because that's what girls do to each other. It's jealousy, it's envy. That's what it is.
I just don't understand. Like I said, I mentioned this earlier.
Every single one of you guys who attack my channel, all of you, bunch of chicks, bunch of women, man, bunch of little girls,
I mentioned this before also. I just wanted to pick up on this again. I just get so tired of seeing the same the same panel shows on repeat. It's always, the red pillars versus the feminists. And I'm like, well, I want to see more of red pillars debating men's rights or red pillars debating MGTOWs, because at the end of the day, a lot of us can recognize the same problems. We all know that women are entitled, women are delusional, and men are struggling. So it's like, some people's solutions is, self-improvement. Some people's solutions is change the laws. Some people's solutions is, we all have all these different ideas. And it's like, why don't we just sit down and have a conversation and say, okay, well, why do you think that the laws aren't the solution? Why do you think that self-improvement is going to work or not work? Because look, we've tried different things, and certain things. I mean, I don't know. Do you think things are getting better? I don't think things are really changing. I think there are some creators that I would straight up say, almost come across as like male supremacists. They want to take away women's rights, and whether you agree with that or not, I don't think that's actually going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
And my thing is, I'm not
They can say
necessarily trying to take away women's rights. I'm just trying to basically kind of liberate men and give
But
them.
what rights? What rights specifically would you be able? Would you take away from
Well,
them?
I mean, all
aside
these,
from voting. Aside
well,
from
that's what
voting.
I'm saying. They all say repeal the 19th, take away women's right to
Yeah,
vote, and
yeah.
I think that's more delusional than legalizing prostitution. But
Yeah.
I mean, my thing is the fact that I'm not trying to control women. I'm just trying to not be controlled by women, and I think
Okay.
that women use sex to control men, and that's why
Sure.
I advocate for what I advocate for. Like I said, whether you agree with it or not, I think there's logic behind what I'm saying, but like I said, I mean, some people think it's degenerate and it's not good for society, whatever. I mean, we can debate
Yeah.
all these different things. I would just like to see it debated, and I don't understand why it hasn't been debated. But I mean, look, I understand that, different people have certain brands, they have certain ideas, certain people come from different, religious backgrounds. So I mean, there's a lot of different ideas on what's going on, and I can totally, respect where everybody's coming from, but I think that there's also a lot of grifters in the space as well, and
Sure.
I think that
I would say most of the female red pillars are absolute grifters. I don't call anybody out by name, but I feel like a lot of them pander to men. They're not really trying to solve it. I mean, especially some of the bigger ones, not mentioning names, but
Yeah.
I think they over pander to men. It's like, okay, we get it, you're on our side. And and in some ways I'm glad they're there, because it's good to have a female do your fighting for you, because they're more likely to get people's ears listening.
And what's the expression of broken watch is right twice a day? So
Broken watch
I
is
mean,
right
look,
twice a day.
there are some creators that I don't really care for, but they'll make some good points every once in a while. But they need to be called out and challenged on things, because at the end of the day, this is all about what makes sense, and we just have to, let's just have a healthy exchange of ideas. I mean, that's because we're all, living through this, and this is real stuff, and we want to try to, find something that's going to, I mean,
like a round table.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it's great when we can talk about these things, but it seems like a lot of creators just kind of want to isolate themselves in their own little ivory tower and just kind of spout off their stuff, and it's well, I have a really good counterpoint to what they're saying, but they're not open to being challenged,
Oh yeah, I mean, I've always said I'm willing to talk to anybody. I'm not always the most articulate person. All I could do is just give you my own observational experiences, and
And you have the background to what I mean? It's and me as well. I mean, I'm not just talking, from no experience. I mean, I've done interviews on the street for 6 years, and whenever some people can't be told, they can only be shown. So sometimes I go out and, I talk to conservatives, and I talk to liberals, I talk to feminists, I talk to, sex workers, I talk to everybody, because my point is I want everyone to be engaged, because this is a conversation that affects all of us.
Yeah, and as long as it's a good faith, healthy debate, I don't have a problem with any of that. And I mean, as a matter of fact, just before me and Jonathan started shooting, I think I even told him, anytime I've been interviewed, I'm sure it's happened to you too, the person doing the interviewing will always say, is there anything you don't want me to ask you? Anything you don't want me to stay away from? And I told him, I'm like, yeah, my name's not Kamala Harris. I'm not going to give you this list of things, don't ask me this. I'm like, anything you want. Even when I went on Playing with Fire with Alex, Alex's channel from Playing with Fire, he asked me the same thing. He goes, you sure there's nothing you want to, I was like, no, go for it, anything you want. And he was like, that's funny, because and they mentioned a few red pillars. He was like, they said you can't touch this, this, and this. I'm like, no, dude, ask me whatever you want. I'm not hiding anything. I'm an open book.
Yeah. No, I think that's great.
Even though I don't do a whole lot of these type of interviews, I think you're one of the first people I've sat and interviewed with. But I want to do more of them, because I think they're fun. I think it creates conversation. But it's all in good faith. There's none of this gotcha and oh yeah, I'm gonna clip farm this.
Yeah, my MO has always been about trying. I don't want to tell people what to think. I just want people to think for themselves. And so I like to try to challenge people and inspire critical thinking, because that is basically, what, the whole idea of being a rational male is supposed to be about. We're supposed to basically, consider these things. And to be honest, there's a lot of rational males who don't do things that seem very rational.
I know what you mean, man. Yeah, a lot of these rational males are pretty irrational, in my opinion, especially ones that don't like me. But
it's very irrational to not like you. You know what I mean? You're a very likable guy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Everybody who meets me are like, hey, you're actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
This person said this, and this. And I'm like, well, that says a whole lot more about that person than it does me.
Yeah.